They need Gmail to serve them and serve their information needs. And so it makes it a dilemma. How are we going to innovate but still provide the reliability and the uptime and the availability that people have come to depend on? And Labs was a really creative means of allowing people to choose for themselves how on the bleeding edge they wanted to be. And we're getting tons of good feedback. We just graduated 5 labs. We just deprecated 5 labs. Not everything we do there is indicative of a commitment from the company, and it's kind of very much experimental. But where we see pickup, where we see interest, we're going to take those features and back integrate them into the product and make sure that users have access to them.
So, I mean, not to necessarily be too critical, but I think I wonder if you guys worry too much on the privacy side. Like, it still seems like Gmail is actually, a startup inside a big enterprise company, and obviously, Microsoft has huge install base. I think estimates at least 60 to 75% of the enterprise market are still on Outlook and Exchange, and that market's not going away that fast. It's still going to be there for at least 5 to 10 years, if not forever. Do you guys feel like you need to take more risk in sort of like going, developing Gmail as a platform, taking a little bit more privacy risk to open that up to third-party markets, or you're, because the statement that I heard you there say we're going to be very conservative, right? And I actually am hoping that that's not the case. I think, like, again, Facebook seems to have taken more risk and benefited from that in the long run, and I hope you guys are willing to sort of do that, at least on the products where you're still, gaining market share and trying to innovate.
I think there's plenty of room for innovation without taking risks with user privacy. I don't see those things as tightly coupled. There are ways to, and I think there are standards that are emerging. Things like OAuth are fantastic. They're means of delegating permission to a third-party entity that it has full disclosure, is revocable, all of those things. So I don't think it's impossible to be conservative with respect to user privacy and still innovate and allow users to experience at their discretion with full disclosure some of the magnificent, wonderful, innovative things that we can do when users do grant consent, and that's the goal. And I think if the value is there and the clarity and disclosure and openness with the user is there and the control is there for them, then they will opt in. They'll decide that this is something that makes sense for them, and they'll come to Gmail for that reason.
Let's actually encourage some questions from the audience. I want to jump to 2 new areas. So we haven't talked about YouTube, we haven't talked about Android, and I guess a lot of people also look at YouTube as maybe being still a work in progress and maybe questionably profitable or break even. Personally, I think it's fascinating you guys have 300 million users on YouTube, but not necessarily a huge amount of monetization happening there right now. Do you guys feel like that's still a work in progress with opportunity ahead of it, or where do you guys see kind of YouTube going forward in the future?
Any questions on China? I'm no expert on YouTube. My friend Salar is presently running that business, and he is a formidable business leader and has been at Google a very long time, and I think has been entrusted with the opportunities and challenges of YouTube, and I couldn't think of a better guy to realize those opportunities than Salar, but I have nothing to share tonight regarding YouTube financials.
So I get that, but I guess, to me it feels like, so you guys, I'm just going to say, right now I feel like you're losing a battle to Facebook Connect in terms of social profiles and the ability to log into the web, and I think that's really, that is a substantial thing to be concerned about, even for Google as dominant as they are, and I wonder if you guys worry about that. And to me it seems like the 2 properties where you could take advantage of that are Gmail and YouTube. You have huge user login frequency happening on those products. It looks like you're doing a lot of stuff on Gmail. I'm not sure if those efforts are coordinated with what's going on YouTube, etc.
Yes, and this is not lost on us. We have a lot of users in YouTube, and it is a social product. If you think about how YouTube grew up, it grew up in a social context. It's that impulse to share the video that makes them viral and makes people connect around that media type.
But there's no social network built into YouTube.
Well, there is.
Sam says there is. And you know, I think again, some of these things are implicit. You could say the same thing about Gmail, that there was no social network in Gmail, but understanding
but you guys are working on
relationships between entities is a core competence for Google. And so, yes, there is opportunity with YouTube, and we've noticed that.
All right, more to be heard on that topic, I guess. So let's talk about another area where maybe you guys feel a little pressure. So Android. Obviously, you guys are spending a ton of money and effort in going after a market that theoretically is larger than the PC web. Mobile devices estimated at 3 billion devices worldwide. I don't know what the smartphone capabilities are, but probably at least 500 million, and maybe on its way to 1 billion now. You guys are losing that one to Apple bad. Right? So, you know, I know you got a lot of things lined up to go there. Like, how do you see that market progressing, and how does it feel to be number 2 in the sort of market?
Well, really, are there any questions about China? Android is another part of Google that I'm not close to. I'm a happy user, and a lot of the products that I do care about, like Gmail and Contacts and Calendar, are marquee applications. They're the kind of personal information management that makes smartphones useful.
Isn't that something to go into, you know, Android? A lot of those pieces, voice and docs.
Absolutely, and they already are. And I think this is a huge opportunity for us to create a fantastic experience that basically takes the cloud paradigm that I talked about in the apps marketplace and distills it down to whatever device is most convenient for you, which increasingly is people's smartphones that have tremendous capabilities. So I think you have to think about the longer term trajectory of when we get to the opportunity with YouTube and we get to the cloud and we get to mobile. There's some really wonderful user experiences that are awaiting. We wish we could get to them faster. I'm super impressed with the Nexus One, and I'm a reformed iPhone user myself. I hope somebody here wants an Android phone. I brought one to give away. So I see quite a few hands out there. We'll let Dave figure out who gets it.
Pick someone else.
I have to say, I do feel like Android is another place where we're just getting started, and the rate of innovation, and if you guys use the G1 and look at just the delta between the G1 and the Nexus One, it's amazing what that team has accomplished in an incredibly short time. And if they keep up at that rate, I think it's like you said about Gmail and everything else, you have to look at the instantaneous acceleration as well as where we are in the market right now, and I think that bodes well for us.
So I'll give you a softball here. I will say that I'm a regular user of Google Docs, like day in and day out, and I really, that probably has happened slowly. I want to say it kind of boiled a frog over the last 3 or 4 years, but like I really don't fire up, Excel and Word very often at all anymore. I guess, you guys are still probably trailing Microsoft, dramatically in terms of revenue, but like it looks like you're starting to get some traction going after small business, even large business in certain like hosted scenarios. Where do you guys see the opportunity in taking Docs, and how does that tie into the overall apps marketplace stuff that you guys have just launched?
So the Docs team is another team that is rocking. Most of them are in New York, and they're just one of the most diligent, high-performing teams that I've ever encountered. There's a lot of great things coming up in Docs over the course of the year. A lot of these are direct responses to user feedback, so things that you have expressed that you need, things that you may not know you need, but you're going to love when you see them. There's just a lot of opportunity for innovation. And if you think about the history of Docs, it was really a gradual acquisition of company after company that we kind of pieced together in a suite. And I think what you'll see over the course of 2010 is we really make these things hum in tandem. And so some of the brighter lines between the products will blur, and you'll have a much more coherent experience across your data, across document types. And there's a lot to look forward to there and a lot of opportunity. But I think, like I said about cloud computing, once you taste Google Docs and once you understand what it's like to work, for instance, on a presentation collaboratively, you can't even imagine you did it another way. You know, at Google, there are times when we're presenting to a room full of execs and we're editing the slides. There might be 8 people kind of working on the presentation in real time right up until we go into the room. And in fact, there are times when I'm showing slide 2 and I happen to know slide 8 is still being authored. You know, dynamically in response to the room. You know, this is such a different way of working than you know, mailing versions of attachments around and asking who's got the ball and back integrating changes and things like that. It's just a completely different experience. And until you taste it, which I know all of you in the room have, but until businesses and people throughout the world have really experienced that, it's hard to convey the advantages of this model versus something that is much more about pushing pixels and, you know, desktop publishing.
So, given I encourage people from the audience to ask some tough questions, except about China. Actually, I want to poll the audience on this one. So, who do you think biggest competitor for Google is right now? And I'll give you the options. Yahoo, Facebook, Microsoft, and Apple. Anybody think Yahoo is a biggest competitor for Google? Sam? Sam, call us Sam. Okay, so probably not. Facebook, Microsoft, Apple. Let's go Facebook. Okay. Microsoft, probably in business. Still a pretty significant competitor in a lot of areas, actually leading in many areas. Apple. Really? Okay, so I think the audience says Facebook is the competitor, not Apple. I don't know if are there any other like major companies I've left off the radar there that people think about? Baidu in China. Excellent, Sam. Yahoo Japan in Japan. Killing it. Yahoo Japan is far away #1. I guess, you know, I think it's an interesting question. Facebook and Apple definitely, Facebook along many social areas, Apple and certainly many mobile areas. I want to come back to like, one thing we haven't really talked about very much is payments and sort of what you guys see as like the vision for payments. And I really don't hear too much about Google Checkout. I'm not sure I really understand the story there. There used to be a lot of, you know, fear and concern when I was at PayPal that Google was entering the payments market. How do you guys see that strategically for you? You're going to now start like allowing billing procedures for apps and marketplace going through checkout, I assume. Anything else other than checkout, or has to go through checkout?
I think we have a number of stores at Google. You can look at the Android apps marketplace. You can look at the Google Apps marketplace. There are others, and I think we have an opportunity to refactor those to make a really great experience that establishes a relationship of trust with users and allows them to, you know, pay in situ wherever they are and not have to jump into a completely alien experience. We haven't done that to date, so I think there's an opportunity there. I agree that that opportunity has been latent for a while. Like you mentioned with YouTube, I think this isn't lost on us. I think that it's recognized within Google that there's an opportunity around payments, and I think that, as you alluded to, there's both opportunities in being a principal, but there's also opportunities in being open and allowing users to pay with whatever methodology they're comfortable with, whatever relationship they've already had. And that's very consistent with Google and the way that we think about these things is to give users choice and control and to try to create open standards where we can.
That sounded great, but I'm not sure you answered the question, which was, again, you guys are currently offering Google Checkout as an option and then credit card processing through that, but do you have plans to offer PayPal as an option? I assume probably not Facebook payments if that ever came out, but like, if you want to kind of have an open environment for Google Apps Marketplace, and if those developers want multiple payment options, sure, Google Checkout can be one of those. Would PayPal be an option?
I want to clarify something here. I don't know where this misunderstanding came up, but I'm not the CEO of Google. I'm the VP of product for Google Apps, which does not include things like Checkout, Android, or YouTube. It's a pretty big patch, but I truly don't know. And I told you I'd tell you that when we bumped up against that, so there you are.
I've got one question about Google Apps.
Yes, sir.
Is that okay?
Go for it.
Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So in the marketplace, when someone, how do you police the apps from doing things that are inappropriate? Like, someone makes available email, and then a hacker breaks into that application and then uses it to pull the email out. Like, is there any protection against?
So, how are you certifying apps and/or monitoring apps for good and bad behavior, and relative to the more draconian version of that process, or not, that exists at Apple?
So, it's very early days for us. We launched this, 15 days ago with a set of trusted partners out of the gate. So I can't honestly look you in the eye and say that we've ironed out all of the eventualities in this process that might occur. I think part of what we do is give the administrator choice about what data they are comfortable exposing to what entities. And so that could be abused, certainly, and it could be that that the original entity is compromised in ways. I think that's what you're suggesting, is that they could be hacked and then hence the data leaked. I think this is part of the challenge of living in a connected digital world, is that in many ways you're only as strong as the weakest link in the chain. And I think these companies are going to have to develop reputations around trust and their care of the data, and I think we have an opportunity to try to create means of disclosure so that users understand exactly what data is leaving a server and what happens to that data when it leaves the server. Is it replicated? Is it stored? How long is it stored? Where is it stored? We need to get better as an industry at helping users understand the flow of data as we provision more and more opportunities for agents to kind of act on our behalf. We've got to get better at describing that. And we're challenged with this just in Google Apps itself. People are rightly concerned about our data retention policies and our geolocation policies. I went to Japan recently and they were very concerned about a cloud computing architecture which was global and meant that Japanese citizens' data could potentially reside in foreign countries where Japanese law may not apply. And so these are valid concerns, and I think Google need to address them, and I think it's bigger than Google. I think we as an industry need to figure out ways to deal with this stuff.
A couple questions over here. Stephen?
Yes, so great momentum, really incredible to see. So you mentioned it launched and then you had some surprise with the success. What's the biggest insight or surprise that has gotten so far and what's that point?
So a question around what's the biggest insight or surprise around Google Apps Marketplace or generally Google Apps Marketplace?
For me, for the people that were closer to this, maybe this isn't a surprise, but I think the number 2 app on the marketplace right now is something called Aviary, which is a photo editing product, which is really featureful, but that's not what I would have expected in terms of a core business unmet need. And so that is surprising to me. I don't know whether that's durable and it will be number 1 with a bullet forever, but the early success there has delighted them and been surprising to us. So I think it's that serendipity that when you kind of create a platform and allow for innovation, you really don't know where people will find opportunity, and certainly in the early going, again, it's very early days for us, but that has surprised me.
I just had a quick question on, I haven't dug in on the Apps Marketplace stuff. Do you enable subscription billing out of the box on all those apps also?
Yes. Yeah, so our billing relationship is recurring, and that accrues for the providers of apps as well.
Question over there, and then I'll come back on this side. Way in the back.
I know privacy concerns are driving a lot of your decisions, but I'd like to see more apps that people are willing to give up all privacy. Take my browser history, my Netflix, do my Amazon purchases, tell me where I should go for dinner and who I should be eating.
So I guess that was a request, not a question per se, of like, hey, naked privacy as much as possible, take my data and go with it where you will.
As a question, do you have the ability to take down the walls between all the different services and make better recommendations based on...
Okay. So can you address a customer segment that wants to give up, a fair amount of privacy in exchange for functionality?
Sometimes in the course of argument, people have posited that someone like that might exist. This is the first time I've
it's a valid point. I would...
No, I think it is an interesting point. You as startups should go, pursue that.
Okay, over on this side, Joe.
So the public figure is 2 million businesses using Google Apps.
Yeah.
Can you share how many businesses have installed a third-party app in the first 2 weeks of these stuff?
So 2 million businesses using it. How many have installed a third-party app?
Through the marketplace.
Through the marketplace.
I can't, again, not because I'm hiding that, I don't know it. I can tell you that in the first 48 hours, this is not at all an answer to your question, but in the first 48 hours, there were 5 apps that had more than 1,400 installs. And that is against that 2 million number. So the potential base of that, might be measured in the hundreds of thousands. It's hard to say the magnitude of those domains. But even in the very early going, there was a lot of interest amongst domain administrators in trying this out, and I just don't have those stats.
Do you know how many have paid for a third-party app?
Nope, don't know that either.
Actually, just maybe on the distribution question, like this was something I think is interesting. How do you provide distribution other than just people coming to that page and finding out about it? Is that, do you have plans to like help developers, do distribution either on an organic or paid basis?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, I mentioned that there are a number of stores in Google, and I think, qualities of a good store are that it's easy to find something, easy to find recommendations, easy to kind of tailor recommendations to the needs of your organization. So there's huge opportunity helping people navigate that. Right now, I mentioned in Chrome about the fact that we have 70 apps. When we have 700 or 7,000, you're going to need a different mechanism for discovery than we have today, and we'll stay ahead of that.
Let's go here, and then here. Yes.
You showed that list of APIs, and conspicuous apps, and has been the Google Reader API, which has been coming for about 2 years now, I think. Is it, and when?
So when is Google Reader API going to be soup?
So the apps marketplace deals with those apps which we have deployed in enterprise. So the ones you see there are more around personal productivity, calendar, mail, contacts, etc. So that is why it is conspicuously absent. In terms of when a Reader API will be available, or whether it makes sense to take something like Reader and actually turn it into a business app, and I think there's a very credible argument there that Reader and other apps in Google might make a lot of sense in a business context. Things that, I mentioned that Aviary has taken off and surprised me. Why isn't something like Picasa also available to domain administrators as a business app? I think those are very valid questions that we're looking at.
Let's go for maybe 3 more questions and let's jump to discussion then. Way in the back, Marcus?
How much have you found being a public company has stifled innovation?
How much have you found being a public company has stifled innovation? I'm sure he has a lot to say about that.
So Sam knows this. At Yahoo, part of what value I thought I could add as I came to Yahoo from a startup, I kind of looked around and I said, follow me, there's a better way. And we did things like Brick House and Hack Days and started a lot of programs to rekindle the spirit of innovation at Yahoo. And I think some of those were successful and led to wonderful things like Flickr and Pipes, and other of those have subsided, abated, gone away. At Google, when I landed at Google, I looked around and said, there is no better way. Not that I can contribute to, and when I have an idea, I certainly add it to the commons, but the culture itself has been so geared toward creating an environment of creativity and innovation and openness and transparency that I can't think of a better way to realize that than I see at Google. And it's far from perfect because it's ever changing. It's not as if we've reached the plateau. Every single person who comes contributes something and can change and adapt that culture. And even as Google changes itself, it changes its scale, that culture needs to adapt. But I don't know how a company could be structured to be more innovative than Google. And it has a huge appetite for innovation and a huge respect and cultural currency on innovation. And I think it does a very, very good job there. In terms of the constraints of being a public company, Eric often gives all hands and literally, walks us through deeply confidential information. And then there are some points where he says, as much as I'd like to share this with you, this is the part of the presentation where it's not permitted for various reasons. So I think the company very much respects the obligations of what it means to be public. We have senior executives who understand, SOX compliance and all of that, so we're not pushing any envelopes there. But within the culture of the company, I think that it's just so geared towards innovation that, it's hard to imagine how it could be better. Are there other Googlers here? I know Irene is here, but just a couple. Okay, yep.
Probably quite a bit of ex-Googlers, I would imagine also. Yeah. So let's do one more. Somebody asked one in the back there in
Mine's
red.
good, though.
Sorry. It was good.
Okay, there's an App Store bang grab lately. The company, there's Apple, Android, Palm Pre, even the Intel is trying to do like an Atom App Store. Do you foresee one App Store to do them all? And if so, how do you make that happen?
So, App Store proliferation, competition, do you see one app to rule them all, one ring to bind them in the darkest night?
I don't know. I mean, I think, mobile smartphones are pretty obvious places to extend and have an app store, and until such time as there's interoperability and you can kind of, compile your code and have it run anywhere, it seems like there'll be flavor-specific versions of these app stores. And I think the opportunity we have to get beyond that is really HTML5 and thinking about really web apps. The web and kind of standards-based apps are the way to get beyond these kind of siloed operating system specific renderings where developers have to invest a lot of energy and without a lot of benefit other than reaching another segmented audience. So that's our hope. We're hoping that the web has won and that ultimately HTML5 both on mobile devices and on desktops and netbooks will provide a level of interoperability and portability that will allow developers to focus on the hard problems and not the vagaries of operating system X.
So that was great because I actually wanted to ask you about the HTML5 Flash issue, but I think you sort of just addressed a lot of that. Gil? All right, you have the last question, Gil. That'll be a good one.
I'm going to echo McClure's question, but apply it to you. When will I be able to pay for my Google apps with PayPal?
Ooh, when will you be able to pay? I don't think he's going to answer that, but okay.
Gil, you can pay me directly. I'll pay the checkout. So.
I think he's got a Nexus 1 for sale. Who's, what's today? Today's March 23rd? Sorry, March 25th. Anybody have a birthday today?
4 days ago.
Hold on. Today. Anybody today? Okay, anybody yesterday or tomorrow? Wait. Is there one? All right, come on up. Yesterday or tomorrow? Do you have a driver's license with you?
Need ID.
Need ID. All right, come on up. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear. Happy birthday to you. Courtesy of Google and Bradley. I do want to thank Bradley for dealing with my grilling him on subjects that he really doesn't control. And actually, like, you are product manager for like 90 or more products or something like that?
Oh, no, it's not that many.
It's some ridiculously large number, though, that you manage. So, thank you for coming and like telling us about Apps Marketplace as well as a whole bunch of other stuff. And we are now diving into the discussion table portion of it. So again, off the record by default, unless otherwise stated. We're going a little bit late because this was such a relatively interesting topic. Let's